In mid-November 2025, the United States was hit by an unprecedented Arctic blast. What started as a chilly forecast quickly became a historic deep freeze, gripping 40 states in a week-long siege. Headlines were dominated by record-breaking cold, howling winds, and snowstorms that buried entire communities. Highways froze, airports shut down, and millions struggled to stay warm as power grids buckled under the strain. The Great Freeze of 2025 wasn't just a weather event, it was a wake-up call, showing how quickly life can be upended by nature's extremes. Daily routines vanished, replaced by a collective fight against the cold. As we look back, understanding the causes and effects of this storm is crucial, not just for the memories but for the lessons it left behind. The Great Freeze proved that winter can arrive with little warning and overwhelming force. What triggered this chaos? How did a seemingly ordinary winter forecast spiral into a historic weather event that left millions scrambling for safety? It all began when a massive surge of Arctic air broke loose from the North Pole, funneled south by a dramatic deep dip in the jet stream. This powerful river of air, which usually keeps frigid temperatures locked up north, shifted unexpectedly, unleashing a torrent of cold across the continent. This wasn't just cold, it was January level, bone-chilling air, arriving months ahead of schedule. People stepped outside to find temperatures plummeting far below normal, with wind chills that could freeze exposed skin in minutes. The Great Lakes, still holding onto warmth from autumn, became the perfect fuel for the storm. As the icy air swept over the lakes, it picked up huge amounts of moisture, supercharging the system and unleashing relentless, blinding lake-effect snow that buried entire regions. The collision of frigid Arctic air and relatively warm lake water created explosive snowfall, overwhelming cities and towns in just a few hours. Streets disappeared under drifts, and emergency crews raced to keep up. But there was more at play. Larger atmospheric patterns, like the negative phases of the North Atlantic and Arctic oscillations, set the stage for this worst-case scenario. These global shifts weakened the usual barriers, allowing cold air to surge farther and longer than normal. The result? A perfect storm of cold and moisture, locking much of the nation in an icy grip and transforming familiar landscapes into frozen, unrecognizable scenes. Meteorologists watched in awe as all the atmospheric dominoes fell in sequence, creating a blizzard for the record books, one that will be studied for years to come. The science behind the Great Freeze is a powerful reminder of how interconnected and unpredictable our climate can be, and how even small shifts in the atmosphere can have massive, far-reaching consequences. The storm's advance was swift and merciless, a force of nature that seemed to gather strength with every passing hour. As the first ominous clouds appeared on the horizon, few could have predicted the scale of what was to come. It all began on November 10th in the upper Midwest, where residents awoke to a world transformed by swirling snow and biting winds. What started as light flurries in cities like Minneapolis and Chicago quickly escalated into a paralyzing winter storm, blanketing streets and halting daily life. By the very next day, a surge of Arctic air swept southward, stretching from the northern plains all the way to the deep south, freezing over 40 states in its relentless grip. Freeze alerts blanketed the nation, affecting 90 million people as temperatures plunged 10 to 30 degrees below normal, shattering records and catching many off guard. Even the South, unaccustomed to such bitter cold, faced rare frost and freeze warnings, threatening crops and daily routines. Meanwhile, the Northeast braced for relentless snow, with communities preparing for days of shoveling and hazardous travel. The storm's slow movement, pinned in place by a stubborn jet stream, meant there would be no quick relief. Just days of dangerous cold, heavy snow, and mounting challenges for millions. Even as the snow eased in some areas, the bitter cold lingered, turning fresh powder into solid ice, and making roads treacherous long after the last flakes had fallen. The storm's reach was staggering, a vivid reminder of how a single blast from the Arctic can disrupt life across an entire continent, affecting millions from coast to coast. This was no ordinary blizzard. It was a nationwide takeover, a weather event that united cities and towns in a shared struggle against the elements. The Great Freeze's relentless march was a powerful lesson in the far-reaching impact of extreme weather, reminding us all of nature's ability to reshape our world in a matter of days. The Midwest took the first and hardest hit, with cities like Chicago and Detroit buried under record November snow. Chicago vanished behind a wall of snow, receiving 30 centimeters overnight, transforming the city into a silent frozen landscape. Highways became impassable, littered with abandoned cars as drivers fled the worsening conditions. Wind chills dropped below -20°C, creating life-threatening situations for anyone stranded. Power lines snapped under the weight of ice, plunging millions into darkness and cold. Emergency services were stretched thin, racing to respond to accidents and welfare checks. Snowplows worked non-stop, but the relentless storm often outpaced their efforts. Even winter-hardened cities struggled as the early ferocious storm tested their limits. The Midwest's ordeal was a stark reminder. Even the best-prepared regions can be overwhelmed by nature's fury. As the storm moved east, the Northeast faced a relentless barrage of lake-effect snow. Buffalo and Cleveland were buried under multi-day snowfalls, with drifts piling over 2 meters high. The weight of the snow threatened buildings, causing roofs to buckle and collapse. Streets disappeared under mountains of snow, making travel impossible and isolating entire neighborhoods. Unlike typical storms, stationary snowbands dumped meters of snow on some communities while sparing others just miles away. Airports and highways shut down, stranding travelers and cutting off cities. The region's transport networks proved vulnerable to the storm's fury. Digging out would take days, requiring massive coordinated efforts long after the last flake fell. The Northeast battle was a dramatic display of winter's power and unpredictability. The most shocking twist: the Arctic blast's deep dive into the American South. States like Georgia and Tennessee saw their earliest snowfalls in decades, while Florida's palm trees glittered with frost. Temperatures plunged into the 20s and 30s Fahrenheit, shattering records and catching millions off guard. Southern homes and infrastructure, built for heat, struggled to cope with the deep freeze. The agricultural toll was devastating. Crops and citrus groves destroyed overnight, costing farmers millions. Even a light dusting of snow or ice shut down cities unprepared for winter weather. Roads became treacherous, schools and businesses closed, and accidents soared. The Sun Belt's struggle revealed just how vulnerable warm regions are to rare, extreme cold. The southern shock was a powerful lesson in the reach and unpredictability of Arctic weather. The numbers tell the story. Temperatures dropped 10 to 30 degrees below average across 40 states. Chicago saw 30 centimeters of snow overnight, while Buffalo and Cleveland measured drifts in meters. Over 6,000 flights were canceled, paralyzing air travel nationwide. Millions lost power as ice and wind brought down lines, leaving families in the dark and cold. 90 million people were under freeze alerts at the storm's peak. Road accidents numbered in the thousands, and damages soared into the billions. The Great Freeze shattered records for both cold and snowfall, leaving meteorologists stunned. These statistics reveal the storm's true scale: historic, disruptive, and unforgettable. The Great Freeze was a statistical behemoth, its impact felt in every corner of the country. Beyond the numbers and statistics, the Great Freeze was, at its core, a deeply human story. A story of struggle, resilience, and the power of community. As temperatures plummeted and snow blanketed entire neighborhoods, daily life was upended for millions. Drivers found themselves stranded for hours, sometimes overnight, on frozen highways. With fuel running low and the cold seeping in, many faced life-threatening conditions, unsure when help would arrive, or if they'd make it through the night. Emergency responders braved treacherous, ice-slicked roads to reach those in need. They worked long shifts, often risking their own safety and well-being, to rescue stranded motorists, deliver medical aid, and bring hope to those trapped by the storm. Widespread power outages forced countless families to abandon their freezing homes and seek warmth in emergency shelters. There, volunteers provided not just hot meals and blankets, but also comfort, reassurance, and a sense of hope in the midst of uncertainty. Amid hardship, communities came together in remarkable ways. Neighbors checked on each other, shared generators and supplies, and worked side by side to clear snow for the elderly and vulnerable, showing that no one had to face the storm alone. Volunteers delivered blankets and food to those trapped at home, braving the elements to ensure no one was forgotten. Strangers became friends as they helped push cars from snowbanks and offered a helping hand wherever it was needed. The adversity of the storm brought out countless acts of kindness and solidarity. Across towns and cities, people shared what little they had, passed supplies hand to hand, and made sure everyone felt supported. In the hardest-hit areas, a spirit of "we're all in this together" prevailed. Community meetings, shared meals, and simple gestures of comfort helped people endure the long, cold nights. The Great Freeze tested communities in ways they'd never imagined, but it also revealed their strength, compassion, and ability to overcome adversity together. Nature's fury was met with unwavering human resilience as people faced the storm head-on and refused to give in to despair. The storm's legacy lives on, not just in records broken or hardships endured, but in the bonds forged and the spirit of solidarity that carried communities through a week of crisis and beyond. As the snow melted and temperatures rebounded, the nation reflected on the ordeal. Experts noted that while no single storm proves climate change, the frequency of extreme cold snaps fits the pattern predicted by climate models. A warming Arctic can destabilize the jet stream, making deep freezes more likely even as global temperatures rise. The Great Freeze exposed vulnerabilities in power grids, transport, and emergency preparedness. City planners and officials now face the challenge of building more resilient infrastructure for a changing climate. The storm was a wake-up call. We must prepare for more unpredictable extreme winters ahead. The Great Freeze will be remembered not just for its records, but for the lessons it taught about science, preparation, and community. As we move forward, those lessons will be crucial in weathering whatever comes next.